You don't know the power of the dark side.
Welcome to Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andor Van Zark. Now you're listening with power. The information on this podcast is my opinion and some internet research. Hello and welcome to the Star Wars Chatter. I'm Andor Van Zark, and this is your safe space to discuss Star Wars and music. And today we're going to talk about that new episode of Star Wars Andor, Episode 8, Narkina 5. Now, to start off the episode here of the podcast, this episode did meet up with my expectations. But before, a word from our sponsor. Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andor Van Zark. Now you're listening with power. The sponsor of my stream and podcast is DistroKid. If you want 10% off on your first subscription with DistroKid, release your music to the world on every major music platform. Make sure to go to my website, andrewvanzark.com, and click on the discount link under the tab of DistroKid.
The Force is with you, young Skywalker. But you are not a Jedi yet.
Then stop at Star Wars Chatter. If you're a Star Wars fan or like video games, comics, cartoons, manga, anime, and electronic music, Japanese rock, Japanese pop, at www.andrewvanzark.com and click on the radio tab to listen to the live feed or the podcast where I have my pre-recorded condensed episodes. Or if you're around Guaynabo, tune in to 91.7 FM to listen live on your car or any radio receiver. And also, check out my music on every major music platform. And tune in at twitch.tv/AndrewVanZark to see me play video games and do my live concerts on the weekend. Trust in the Force, no light beating, and buckle up. Now, you're listening with power. Power to the music, and may the Force be with you. This is a spoiler warning.
Well, I didn't see that coming.
If you don't like spoilers, make sure to tune out.
Please hang up and try again.
But if you know what we're talking about, make sure to leave me a message on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or tuning to my next live show at twitch.tv/AndrewVanZark and leave me a message there on the chat. So let's get started and listen at your own risk. Now, the episode of Narkina 5 starts off with Cassian Andor with his hiding his identity as Keeve and several other prisoners in orderly fashion being taken to the transportation area to be sent to Narkina 5. As they disembark the ship onto Narkina 5 under bare feet, they are greeted by Imperials, and at that moment, the Imperials let them know that the floor can shock them by turning the floor on level 1. Because if it reaches level 3, that's a whole nother story, you know? So after that, they learn that they are going to work in a factory under an Imperial facility. As a side note, the Imperials are immune to the electricity because they wear rubber shoes, preventing to get shocked. Now, as Cassian, aka Keeve, is taken to the work floor, the sterile facility and the obedience installed within prisoners creates a chilling scene. He's assigned to Unit 52D, where he meets the unit manager, Kino Loy. Kino Loy then gives Andor a brief of the facilities and what he will be doing and who he works for. Then he tells him how important productivity is. By then, Cassian is observing the way they work on Unit 52D. Throughout the speakers, we hear an announcement that his unit has lowered productivity levels. Later in the episode, Cassian, aka Keeve, gets his first look at the small pods where he will be sleeping and eating/drinking. And to mention, right there, it includes a small loo, aka a washroom. One note to mention also here is that the winner of the productivity gets to actually get flavor out of his food. However, that is extremely difficult. As well as we know, within highly imperial protective facilities, it's hard to get news or any outside communications. Later on, Cassian actually gets the hang of the facilities and starts to actually work and become productive. One night, one of the prisoners steps out while the floor was activated and unfortunately dies from shock. On the other hand, Cyril Karn gets to meet Dedra Miro, the Imperial officer in charge. When we move to Cyril Karn, he is called at work by Supervisor Miro to ask Cyril some questions on his data submittals. In that interrogation, Miro says to Cyril that she was already planning to call him to talk on Ferrix to fill in the gaps. However, the submittals that Cyril was doing to the Bureau repeatedly were false. When she asked him what might be missing from Lieutenant Bliving's report that she should know about, he quietly tells her that he's never seen the report. He was forced to sign it and that he had no other option. During that ISB meeting, Dedra shows off the stolen Starpath unit that Cassian lost on Ferrix. She explains that they don't know when it was stolen from the Steergard Naval Yard, because they were afraid to disclose its theft. And to note out, this has become a galaxy-wide problem now, and they don't know how to fix it correctly. They know Cassian was in possession of it, so someone they're referring to as Axis, who we know is Luthen, now, because of that, they want to drill down and find out about him. Later on, Cyril having finished reading the report of Ferrix, Dedra was in the meeting, and she exclaims how much of an incident has not been accurately recorded. She tries to pray further for more information about Axis, yet Cyril can't remember and stands up and shouts out that he will continue to defend his actions, in other words. On the contrary, careful politics are being discussed with Mon Mothma and her husband. And she tells him that her agenda for the evening is to attempt to gather and persuade some votes in order to stall Emperor Palpatine's latest overreach. However, and hear me out, once Tay Kolma arrives, the two get to business, discussing more secretive matters in hand. Tay speaks to her about the new banking regulations which have been made more difficult to proceed with things. Mon Mothma mingles a bit, and then they partygoers debate their merits of the Emperor's decision. After that, we move to Ferrix and see Bix and Bracor at the Marva's place, and they grow concerned about her. She recently fell because she was trying to open a secret tunnel for the rebellion to surprise the stormtroopers. Later on, Big sneaks to send a secret message. At the same time, we get to see Vel and Cinta conversating and upset that they couldn't find Andor on Ferrix. Moving further into the episode, we are now at Luthen's shop. Kleja receives the message and tells him that Biggs is trying to find Cassian because his mother, aka Marva, is ill and doesn't think she is saved by any means. At that point, Biggs let them know that she wants to lose all connections to Ferrix. Yet Luthen thinks Cassian is still at large and about within Ferrix. However, he wants to take advantage of what Biggs may or may not know. He ultimately tells Kleja to shut it down. Moving on, Bix finds a crowd of people gathered, and Brasso tells her that the Empire detained Pac. One of the officers sees Bix in the crowd and calls out for her by name. But she takes off running. Once they catch her, she's brought in for interrogations with Dedramino. Reaching the end of the episode, we get to see Saw Gerrera and Luthen conversating at Seframillo. He keeps his cards closed. At that point, Saw Gerrera asks if Luthen brought any toys. Luthen replies with, "Yes, but it's not free." As Saw Gerrera responds with, "It's never free with you." After that, Luthen asks if Saw knows about Kriegar. After probing the Imperial power station at Spellhouse, he found a weakness in the defense. Saw is hesitant because he normally works alone. Saw asks Luthen, "What are you?" And he replies, "A coward." And then Luthen says, "We die for nothing if we don't put aside our petty differences." So the episode of Andor, episode 8, has a lot to show us that the rebellion is actually way much more in power and actually has more connections than we thought. You know, we already seen Saw Gerrera talking with Luthen and if he's gonna join the rebellion. And for those of you that have seen Rogue One, we do know that things get a little more concrete by then. So we know that Saw Gerrera and many others actually come together with Cassian and Bix and whatnot to actually do what the rebellion is meant to do. So this episode has brought us way further in, and we know what actually Cassian is up to after being sentenced to 6 years in prison. And I like the way that they're portraying this. I like how they're doing this. Even though it feels a little different from the usual Star Wars, I feel that the action is about to fulfill, and the Empire is at risk, to say the least. So that is my opinion and my recap on episode 8 of Star Wars Andor. If you want to catch me live, check out AMP, the Amazon app radio, so you can get yourself ready listening live at my radio show. But if you don't want to do that, you can always check out right now how you're doing with Apple Podcast or Spotify to listen to the show. And as always, you can catch my music on every major music platform. Now that you're listening to Andor and Zark, you're now listening with power. Power to the music. Let's roll out that outro. This was the Star Wars Chatter, hosted by Andor and Zark. If you have any thoughts or any messages that you want to leave me, go check me out on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. Or my website, www.andorvansart.com. And I'll catch you on the flip side. Sayonara! When you listen to Andor Van Zark, you listen with power. Now you're listening with power. Andor Van Zark. Stream on every major music platform. Power to the music.